We're just going to go through today's mobility routine, and this is a hip-focused routine, and I'm performing this routine at the end of a workday, so it's not going to be overly intense, but it's just really going to help release the neural tension in your hips and the tension that comes about from sitting. So as you can see, what I did there is get into a cross-legged position and then just kind of rock side to side. Now the key with this is that we're just trying to release our body and allow it to sink into the range of motion that it normally would be. And now what I'm doing is I'm actually performing some breathing drills. So I started when my hands went on my hips, and I'm just simply going through 10 deep breaths, a 5-second inhale, 2-second pause, followed by an 8-second exhale. Now I'm doing approximately 10 breaths. You might struggle to follow along with me because everyone has their own counts. But my hands were on my diaphragm there and in the stomach because I'm essentially trying to send the breath down into my diaphragm, not breathing through the chest, just to allow my nervous system to relax and the body to relax as much as possible. The more we can breathe into the stomach and focus on a long exhale, the more parasympathetic nervous activity we'll have. And that essentially means that we'll be able to relax more and sink more into our mobility. Now, this mobility routine kind of doubles as a bit of a meditation. It's fairly still, but it will also work on the traditional principles of active mobility. So I'm sitting here just performing the breaths with my eyes closed, trying to relax. And after my 10 breaths, then what I'm going to do is fall forwards, just kind of rock side to side. Now, the aim of this is to just provide a bit of a stretch in the glutes and in the thighs and the muscles that get quite tight from sitting at the desk. And you can see there I kind of just move through my spine. There's no real hard and fast rule as to how you perform this drill. It's really just to allow your body to relax, and each person's going to be different based on their neural tone and mobility. As you can see there, I'm just trying to extend my back. Rocking forward, I tend to get quite tight through the thoracic and through my hips, and so that's what I'm focusing on. Now, the next thing we're going to do is really open up the hips with my absolute favorite drill for any hip mobility issues. This is a 90-90 position. If you're unfamiliar with this position, essentially you're just imagining the legs are at right angles and it's in a 90-degree angle. So my front leg is in front of me at a 90-degree angle, making sure that the shin is not closed off. A lot of people will have it at more of an acute angle. So really allow that 90-degree angle. And then on the back side, which is this side we're focusing on, it's the same thing. So you should essentially have a diagonal type figure. Sorry, I got confused between hexagon and diagon. So what that then would look like is holding this position for 2 minutes. And now the key for the 2 minutes is I'm going to hold it for 2 minutes here, so just follow along with me. But it's absolutely essential to hold it for this long because one, it allows us to relax more into the position, but two, it allows the stretch to become facilitated enough for you to get the range of motion that is actually achieved. Now, as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm slowly moving into the stretch more and more, just relaxing, going into that stretch, and really trying to make the most of the position. And so I'm holding it, releasing more into it, and I'm not actually doing anything yet. I'm just trying to ease into the stretch and actually leaning in, so it's an internal rotation at the hip. If you're unfamiliar with internal rotation, then just think of it as your hip turning in towards your torso. And so what I'm trying to do is bias that stretch by going into it. And then once I get to 2 minutes of holding, what I'm doing is I'm pushing down through the back foot as hard as I possibly can. So pushing down into the ground for 10 seconds. And then as you can see, my thumb goes up. I'm drawing that leg up. If you haven't performed this exercise, it's quite a difficult one. So this is more for the people that have done the mobility classes. They'll understand what they're doing. If you don't quite know what you're doing, just holding this stretch and this position can be quite a beneficial stretch. And any kind of active contraction and trying to move the leg will really, really benefit you. And as you can see here, I open up my hips and perform the hip switch into the other side. Now I'm going to move just so the camera can see me, so you're not looking at my backside the whole time. But you don't necessarily need to move if you're performing this at home. And the exact same thing stands for this routine where we're going to hold the stretch for 2 minutes and relax as much as possible into it, breathing and just trying to really turn in to get the most out of that stretch. Now, apologies for the view of my backside there. I am moving out of the way. That was not my plumber's crack. That was simply the dimples in my back. So if you're worried about that, then well, there you go. Unfortunately, not today. But as you can see here, here's the position that I want for your legs. Okay, so now I'm finished the movement and I'm just doing my final little round of moving up. And what I'm going to do is a hip swivel just to move out of the position, really open up the hips and take advantage of that internal rotation that we've created. So I'm trying to drive my knees as far away apart as I can, and then I'm kind of rotating through with my spine and torso so that I get my hips rotating as much as possible through the hip socket itself. And then what I do is just open the hips up, adjust my position and come into this quadruped position. Now I do a little cat camel, just to kind of get my back moving whenever we can, try to do those things as part of the flow. And then, apologies, I'm just picking some stuff off my mat. But while in this quadruped position, we're going to then go into some hip cars in order to take advantage of the range of motion that we've just created through our hips. So I'm creating a big circle, going all the way through, circling around, coming back up, extending, reaching that hip out to the side, and back up and through. And so the real key with this one is that circle type motion while also pushing actively through the hands through the ground. And you're just trying to create the biggest range of motion possible through the hips in order to take advantage of the range that we've created through doing that last 90-90 paddles and rails drill. And so we're going to go 4 of these each side, taking our time, actively pushing through the hands. Try to keep the back as stable and still as possible throughout the movement. That will ensure the hip stays isolated. And if you can see, I'm really trying to get my neck in a flat position, and same with my back. Then I'm doing a half world's greatest stretch. So all I'm doing is from that quadruped is just putting one knee up and raising my torso, twisting through towards the knee. So I'm staying with the knee down and then bringing the opposite side up. And I'm just rocking back here as a bit of an in-between flow. As you can see, opposite side comes up, rotate, back down. So that'll help to free up the spine, and then a little cat and camel in between. And then what I'm going to do is just perform 20 bird dogs in order to take advantage of midsection stabilization and making the most of the hip range of motion in line with what we're doing with our hip and increase mobility of the spine. So what I'm trying to do is actively lengthen through my shoulders and my leg at the same time. So if you've ever seen Star Wars A New Hope, that's episode 4. The analogy to think of is imagine like the garbage compactor is crushing you in between, and you're trying to actively reach your leg out as far as possible, and then the opposing arm as far as possible, in order to create the tension through the midsection that we're after. And so you can imagine in that episode where the garbage compactor compresses them, that's what we're going for. And trying to push those walls away. So now we're dropping into the bottom squat. Just to finish off, 10 each side by pushing the leg out with the hip. There you go, straightening that arm to really push the hip out. Take advantage of that range of motion that we've created. Stay at this bottom squat. If you can't do a bottom squat, that's fine. Just hold your squat position. We've been through this in the last couple of routines. And then all I'm doing is standing up and going for 3 rotations each side. And that is our hip at home mobility routine.